Good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. It is August 23rd, 2023, and I would like to call this City Council meeting to order. Thank you. Will you please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Roll call. Councilman Owen?
Present.
Councilman McGoffin?
Present.
Councilwoman Diamond?
Present.
Councilman Burns?
Present.
Councilwoman Kesty?
Present.
Councilman Allen?
Present.
And Councilman Lavaca.
Present.
All right, thank you. Looking at approval of the agenda, item D, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Councilman Owen, second by Councilman McGoffin. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consent agenda, items 1 through 7. Do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Madam Mayor, I'll second that.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Councilman Burns, seconded by Councilwoman Diamond. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, moving into our special guest. Good evening, Tobin Meyer. Welcome to the Sedro-Woolley City Council. I understand that you have a presentation for us regarding the Skagit County Interlocal Drug Enforcement Unit. And I just feel free to introduce yourself and move forward.
All right, thank you, Mayor and council members, for having me tonight. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to let me present on our very, very talented drug task force. And if I can get this going, hopefully I can make this all work. I apologize, I'm not there in person today. All right, can everybody see that okay, I hope?
Yes, we can.
Thumbs up? Okay, great. Let's see if I can. Okay. There we go. All right. So as I said, my name is Tobin Meyer. By day, I'm the Chief Criminal Deputy for the Skagit County Sheriff's Office. I've been with the office for about 21 years now. And one of my great pleasures is to as a collateral duty is to get to command the Skagit County Interlocal Drug Enforcement Unit. So today I wanted to present on these topics. I'd like to talk about the team, some recent highlights, some current trends that we're seeing, and then some challenges that we see ahead, or at least the potential to see ahead. So a little bit about the team. It was established in 1987 by interlocal agreement. It's one of the more established teams in the state of Washington. It is what's called a DOJ or Department of Justice Drug Task Force. And more recently, we've become what's known as a HIDTA or High Intensity Drug Trafficking Corridor Task Force as well. Very, very proud of the fact that our task force won Task Force of the Year for 2022 from the Western States Information Network. And that covers a large territory. There's several regions, and through a lot of hard work and heavy caseload, the task force was recognized for their outstanding work for 2022. We're very, very proud of that. The Interlocal Drug Task Force is made up of both local and federal agencies, and I'll get into that a little bit more. So it's a joint local federal operation. Our primary mission is focused on mid to upper level drug trafficking organizations, working to dismantle, disrupt, and hold accountable at that level. And then our secondary mission is what we call special investigations and proactive level missions. These are things that are maybe more at the neighborhood level that the mayor or as a council member you may hear from citizens about, just ongoing issues, and we help with those as well. So what is a mid-level or mid to upper level drug trafficking organization? This is what it looks like. This is an international drug cartel. This is one of two that is supplying about, by our estimation, about 90, 95, maybe even a little bit more than that, percent of the drug supply coming into the state of Washington. So this is CJNJ. This is probably the most violent international drug cartel of the two impacting our region. The other one you may have heard of, their kingpin, El Chapo, is Sinaloa cartel. And both of those are responsible for the fentanyl epidemic that we are seeing here along the West Coast and throughout the United States, but primarily are supplying those drugs into Skagit County, into the city of Sedro-Woolley. Those are all originating here from either CJNG or Sinaloa, primarily Sinaloa. And this is the level of disruption that we aim for. So we may start out at a low to mid-level supplier and work our way up into large-scale operations. Some of our detectives are what we call TFO or they're federal task force officers, and what that helps us do is work cases at a higher level, work them up into this level, and then we start to work with other task forces across the United States to dismantle at the uppermost level that we can, at least stateside, and then have whatever impact we can at the international level. And our task force has been active at this level and the international level. This was a photo taken actually last year, and it's kind of interesting. I should probably update this photo. But things are changing so quickly in terms of supply. This represents one case that we did last year. I'll talk a little bit more about this case in just a few minutes. But what you see here is about 100,000 the blue items you see there is about 100,000 counterfeit pills containing fentanyl. These are known as perk 30s, or blues is sort of a street name for them. But 100,000 for us was large. This was probably one of the largest seizures that we made in 2022. But this constitutes probably one of the smaller seizures that we've done in 2023. Our largest seizure last month was around 550,000 counterfeit pills, just to kind of paint a picture in terms of how things are changing, how rapidly. And there's even a more disturbing trend. I'll talk about this in a little bit. Transition by the international cartels to focus a little more on pure powder fentanyl. But you always see guns, money, definitely fentanyl. The other things you see there is going to be meth, some heroin, and I think there's some cocaine there as well. And one more thing about this photo too, I always forget about is when you see this, and keep in mind as you see photos that we show throughout the presentation, this is a snapshot in time. This particular dealer could move this quantity in, let's say, a week, maybe a month at the most, but very, very quickly. So this is just one snapshot we were able to disrupt in this moment of time, and that's kind of the flow. And all of this was destined for Skagit County. So I talked a little bit about special investigations and proactive policing efforts. We focus heavily on gang-related, ongoing gang-related issues. They obviously tie into firearm crimes and certainly drug crimes as well. And so we certainly have some expertise in this area, as well as working on what we call neighborhood level ongoing criminal nuisances. This would be perhaps a drug house or flop house. This house was in the city of Burlington on Hazel Street and was housing individuals, wanted dangerous fugitives, as well as just a low to lower level supply. But certainly once we were able to mitigate this for the city, we had a lot of happy neighbors come out and thank us for helping them with this. And ultimately, this was dismantled, and I think the house is still hazardous and not ready for occupancy. So these are the agencies that make up, some of the agencies that make up our drug task force. It includes the City of Anacortes, City of Burlington, City of Mount Vernon, the PA's office, the Sheriff's office, tribal partner, as well as your fine city, the City of Sedro-Woolley. Our staffing is made up of myself as a part-time commander. I have a full-time operations supervisor, a full-time office manager, several undercover detectives, and we are assigned 2 part-time prosecuting attorneys. One's our senior criminal attorney, and the other one is a civil attorney who helps us with things like civil forfeitures and other legal matters, civil legal matters that come up. As I mentioned, we are a joint local federal task force, so we do have great participation with the FBI, DEA, Homeland Security, and others as needed. And that participation includes members of federal agencies on our task force day to day. And we're very fortunate to have that level of support. The Drug Task Force itself has historically been funded by the Department of Justice Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, and that comes from the federal government to the state of Washington, which acts as a pass-through. And then from there, local agencies really supply the majority of funding and in-kind contributions through salary and wages of personnel assigned to the task force. And then we have also some limited federal funding that comes in from our federal partner agencies for things like overtime and other equipment needs and things like that, specific to federal level investigations that we conduct. And then we also do receive some funding from forfeiture of illegal proceeds in cases when we seize large quantities of cash or things like that that were used as ill-gotten gains. One of the things that we're really good at here in the state of Washington, I know there's been other special task forces in the news across the nation, but I think one thing that we do really, really well here is oversight. As the commander of the task force, I have direct oversight of the team, and then I report directly to all of the agency executives that are signing partners to the MOU, including Chief McElraith. So I'll report to them quarterly. I'll provide them with updates on things like budget and staffing challenges, any milestones, breakthroughs, case investigations, things like that. And then on a biannual basis, we go through a very, very in-depth peer review process conducted by a peer review expert with a Washington State Commerce who brings in a team of other commanders and supervisors from other teams to take a deep dive into our policies, our procedures, best practices, our financial systems, record keeping, and things like that. And we just went through that last month, or maybe a month and a half ago now, and made it through in flying colors. So very, very proud of the high caliber team that we have. There's no issues, and very, very, very proud of that. So I just want to give a couple examples of some case highlights from primarily from last year, but I snuck one in from this year that I think was of interest. So in March of 2022, Skidoo detectives and special agents conducted an investigation on a Skagit County resident who was trafficking counterfeit Percocet pills laced with fentanyls. Detectives had been receiving complaints regarding the suspect's drug trafficking and how it was escalating after he began making trips to Arizona and bringing back hundreds of thousands of fentanyl pills to Skagit County. The suspect recruited other Skagit County residents to assist in his operation, and with the use of confidential criminal sources and electronic surveillance, detectives were able to execute an arrest after his return from Arizona. And after the arrest, detectives seized over 100,000 fentanyl pills, about 18,000 in cash, 5 firearms, and over 4 pounds of methamphetamine. All three individuals arrested were federally indicted in the Western District of Washington and pled guilty. And that's, again, one of the great highlights of a team like this is that we do have federal participation, which means we can also refer cases to the U.S. Attorney's Office and move them to that higher level of accountability. Another good example of great work by the team here. In April of 2022, Skidoo detectives began an investigation on an Anacortes suspect whom Anacortes police believed was dealing drugs to local juveniles for several years. In May of 2022, there were 2 near-fatal fentanyl overdoses of a 13 and 14-year-old in the city of Mount Vernon. And after interviewing the juveniles, it was found that the pills involved in the overdose had come from this Anacortes suspect. So again, using electronic and physical surveillance, detectives discovered the suspect was ordering the drugs online and having them delivered to his house through the mail. So our detectives were able to coordinate with the U.S. Postal Service and intercepted multiple packages containing various types of drugs. During the physical surveillance at the suspect's house, detectives witnessed the suspect sell fentanyl to a juvenile, and detectives immediately took action to get that fentanyl out of their hands. A subsequent search warrant was served at the residence after he was arrested, and detectives seized fentanyl pills, numerous types of marijuana products, cocaine, MDMA or ecstasy, Xanax, mushrooms, Adderall, and ketamine powder. Additionally, a shotgun and stolen handgun were seized from the house, and the 19-year-old suspect was charged and arrested on related distribution of minor charges. Again, trying to highlight the versatility of the team here. This was one thing I want to point out is that we really act as almost like an attaché to an agency that calls us if there's a unique situation that comes up and they need help. We have very specialized resources that can help with complex cases like this. So on November 29, 2022, detectives from one of our local police departments contacted Skidoo regarding a foster child kidnapping case. With just one phone call to our team, we were able to utilize our multiple specialized resources to begin a search for the child. And we quickly discovered and confirmed within an hour that the suspect and victim had left the country on an international flight 9 days prior. The investigation went from unknown whereabouts and a stateside search to a confirmation that the child and suspect had landed in Hanoi, Vietnam on November 21st, 2022. Our intel indicated, and federal investigators later confirmed, that the suspect had obtained a U.S. passport for the child under a fictitious name using a forged Idaho birth certificate. So again, the multi-agency and international interlocal nature of Skidoo, which includes our federal resources, were able to rapidly pinpoint a kidnapped child at the international level that resulted in the successful recovery of the child on December 15th, 2022. And the suspects were subsequently arrested by detectives upon arriving back into the United States. This was a last case study and one that I thought might be near and dear to the city of Sedro-Woolley, having been so recent. Again, recent case you may recognize, and thanks again to Chief McElraith and his team for awesome collaboration on this. After occupants staying at rooms in the Skagit Motel were tied to 2 recent overdose deaths, the task force and Sedro-Woolley PD worked collaboratively to find a long-term solution for an ongoing criminal nuisance issue for the city. Task force members conducted undercover controlled drug buys from 5 separate rooms at the motel in a very short time span. And utilizing task force, our partners from local and federal agencies, and again, heavy support from Sedro-Woolley, a search warrant was executed on multiple rooms at the motel. During the search warrant, 1,000 fentanyl-laced counterfeit pills were seized, along with 8 individuals who were taken into custody on a combination of drug-related charges and outstanding warrants. Again, the task force specializes in working through complex issues like this, having conducted numerous similar operations. We work closely with law enforcement, health officials, code enforcement, and others with the aim to find a resolution and long-term solution that ensures a safer community for all. Just a little bit on some current trends. This came out of our 2022 annual report. And really the highlight here in the story is, as you all know, is fentanyl. We didn't really see fentanyl in Skagit County until late 2018, early 2019. 2020, we started to see a little bit of an uptick. 2021, we thought the floodgates had opened with having seized 18,600 pills that year. And then again, alarmed at our 2022 seizure numbers, seizing a little over 330,000 counterfeit pills containing fentanyl. What I will tell you is that as of about now, we are tracking to seize well over 1 million counterfeit pills. In fact, I think we've already crested that number for 2023, and a substantial amount of pure powder fentanyl. You can see here in 2022, we started seeing powder, about 106 ounces seized. In our latest investigation, we seized, I think, 12 pounds of pure powder fentanyl. So we're into pounds now, and I don't have a current count, but it's we're going to be looking probably at close to 20, maybe even a little bit more than that, pounds of seized fentanyl powder. And that's kind of what it looks like on the chart, and that'll continue into 2023. So a couple of things of note. We may get lucky. We may get a big fentanyl seizure, and that alone may not be a good indicator of what's happening on the ground in the streets. But when we couple that with street prices, we can pretty well articulate that we think that the market here in Skagit County is saturated. So going back to this chart real quick, 2019, when we would buy counterfeit fentanyl pills as a part of our investigation, we would pay somewhere in the $20 to $30 range in the 2019, 2020 years. And then moving into 2020, 21, we saw those prices drop to about $10 to $15 a pill. And late 2022, we saw the street prices, or our wholesale prices rather, so we buy in bulk, drop to under $1. And most recently, we're seeing it hovering around 50 cents per pill at the wholesale price. So it's again, market demands, dictate prices, and we can certainly tell you that supply is such that prices have dropped dramatically, indicating that we're saturated here. And then the next big thing, if you haven't already heard of it, it's called xylazine. The street name mixed with various drugs will be known as Trank. For those who aren't familiar with it, it is essentially a large animal tranquilizer. It's what it's intended for. And it's we know it's in the region. We first encountered it as a task force early this year, late last year. And it's generally going to be mixed locally. We think shipped in from overseas. We're not really seeing it through the cartel network yet, but it is here. It is getting mixed in. And probably the most concerning thing with it is that there's no known antidote. So where naloxone or Narcan will work with fentanyl, there's nothing that will counteract a xylazine overdose. And we're still waiting on confirmation, but I suspect we've already had at least one of these in recent weeks, and waiting for Coroner Thompson to help us confirm that. Just some quick charts on seizures on other drugs. We are still seeing a fair amount of heroin and methamphetamine. Really dramatic increase in cocaine last year in terms of our seizures, and that was kind of seen across the state. So that no real explanation for it other than just, again, market demands. So some future challenges ahead for us, primarily centered around funding. So it's been in the news a little bit, and I've been making the rounds talking about this, preparing various councils and commissions to hopefully support us as we continue to advocate for our task forces and hopefully demonstrate that there is value in maintaining these task forces. So in terms of funding, I'm peeling back the curtain. I usually don't like to share this type of data, but I think it's necessary at this point. Our annual, what I call our operations budget, so non-salary line, is about $450,000 a year. Our total task force budget with in-kind contributions for salary and benefits and things like that totals about $1.7 million. And then just by comparison, I threw in that the U.S. illicit drug market moves about $150 billion a year, primarily to those two drug cartels I mentioned earlier. So it is kind of a David and Goliath fight, but we think we're doing one heck of a job with the limited funding that we have. About a month ago, Washington State Commerce alerted us that they were going to move our grant from the non-competitive category that was funding about $150,000 a year per task force, and there's 16 of us across the state, to a competitive category, opening up our funds to really any entity that touches public safety, whether on the non-law enforcement side or law enforcement side. And if entities are out there and meet any one of these three categories, they'll be able to apply for the funds historically provided to the task forces for the past 17 years. However, Commerce originally intended to cut this funding off as of now, but through some advocation and hard work of our executive board and help through WASPIC and some others, we were able to work with State Commerce to extend funding through July of 2024 to the task forces, giving us some time to try to find alternative funding sources, hopefully at the state level through some legislation. So the other challenge I'm facing right now is staffing, and I think we have this one solved, but ultimately just a little bit of a background in the event that it comes up at a future meeting. In 2019, our task force operations sergeant was staffed by the Washington State Patrol. That person retired, and Washington State Patrol, due to staffing shortages, was not able to fill it. And unfortunately, due to the high liability, high risk nature of the task force, we either had to fold up or we had to find an alternative. And the sheriff was able to temporarily move one of our sergeants over from the sheriff's office to the task force to fill that role. However, that came at a cost, and the sheriff now needs that position back by January 1 of 2024. So we're working through that. I think we have that sorted out, but certainly a challenge that is not completely done yet. We've made some budget requests to the county, who will manage a sergeant's position for the task force if we're able to obtain that dedicated position. So we're working through that through the budget process, and hopefully that'll come to fruition for us. So the need at this point really is just a stable and reliable funding source for all 16 of the remaining multi-jurisdictional drug task forces across the state of Washington. And that need is rapidly approaching. We have a short session this year for state requests, and we've got a great team right now working to solve that for us through WASPIC, through folks like Senator Lekanoff and Senator Lovick and others, and appreciate that support. We are hopeful that that'll come to fruition, but certainly if it doesn't, we're hoping that we can look to some of our local partners, if necessary, to help us just maintain operations. And for now, we think we're good. We think we're funded well through 2024, maybe through 2025. But we may ask for a local memorandum of understanding, should things fall apart at the state level, to help us ensure that we do have some level of backup to our budget in the event that we're not able to find alternative funding. So stay tuned on that, but we're working really hard with our legislative folks at the state and even the federal level at this point, and I think we're going to be successful. So at this point, we would ask for your support in that endeavor. If you were to hear a discussion on that, we think it's a worthwhile cause. So with that, I thank you for your time, and I know there's a lot of information. I tend to talk really fast during this presentation because it is so much information, but hopefully it was interesting, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to take those.
So are there any questions for Deputy Chief Meyer?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. You were talking about starting to find powdered fentanyl. I was curious, roughly how many pills can they get out of a pound or a kilo of powdered fentanyl, if you know?
Go ahead. I have that number. I don't have it with me, unfortunately. I'm usually prepared with that. But if my memory serves correct, I think out of a pound we could probably get, and it's a large variation. This is a problem with this because there's not a set amount in terms of how much fentanyl goes into a pill, but just by the rough variation from DEA lab results, I think we could probably produce somewhere in the neighborhood of 100,000 pills, 200,000 pills per pound. I think if you were to take our total fentanyl powder fentanyl seizures, it would push us well over 2 million pills or so at this point. If we were to convert our powder fentanyl into pills, that's kind of the level of supply we'd be looking at in terms of flow into Skagit County.
Thank you. I just wanted a way to quantify that to the pill count that you were giving before. And if you don't mind, I'll ask one more question, then I'll let it move on. You were saying that the xylazine seems like it's coming from overseas. Is that a particular country you're seeing that coming from, or just in general it's being shipped in?
Yeah, like, I'll just come out and say it. I don't like to get into the politics of it, but ultimately, the majority of the synthetic drugs flowing into either Mexico through precursors. So I'll back up a little bit. China itself is shipping precursor drugs to the cartels, who are then assembling them into labs into fentanyl, and then that fentanyl is flowing up into the United States. Xylazine is going to be the same story. For now, we're not seeing it through the cartels, so it's likely coming directly from China to the U.S. But I can't vouch for that with 100% confidence. That's just been the trend with all of the synthetics, and my strong belief that's the case.
Okay, thank you very much. And I really appreciate your presentation.
Yes, Councilman Allen?
Yes, I appreciate what the task force is doing. Now I'm kind of wondering about our legal system. What are the ramifications of all this poison being shoved in our country? And are people being punished? Are they being incarcerated? Or is it just a slap on the wrist and a $5,000 bail?
It's a great question, council member. And one of the things I'm trying to do is as I make these presentations is educate the public on what the task forces do versus what maybe a line level officer does. From the task force perspective, we're really the only line of accountability at the mid to upper level. So these investigations we do take months. Some of them take years, and we really focus on trying to get a level of accountability at that mid to upper level, and so from that perspective, we haven't really been impacted by some of these legislative changes and things like Blake and others. Not really an impact for us. When we work through our case to conclusion and subsequent conviction, we're seeing federal minimum mandatory incarceration periods of 10 to 20 years, and that would be very similar at the state and local level. Our prosecutor is very, very aggressive on this, and we're very fortunate to have him and his level of support of holding folks accountable not only for the mid to upper level distribution, but for things like controlled substance homicide. You deliver the fatal dose, especially if you're dealing fentanyl, you're playing Russian roulette. And so I think we're all on the same page, at least at the task force level, with making sure there's a level of accountability, if that answers your question.
Okay, yes, Councilman LaVaca.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hey, I really appreciate everything you guys are doing. I think our entire community does. So thank you so much. It's pretty alarming, the huge spike that we're seeing all of a sudden in 2022 and now in 2023, which is incredible. I mean, we're looking at tens of thousands of times the amount that we were seeing in the past. And I'm wondering what changed in 2022 that opened up the floodgates. I mean, we had elections, we had new administrations, we had laws passed in Olympia, and things happened on a national level. But I mean, this is like, did we just like open the floodgates and flood the communities? I know that I have family members who have suffered with that drug addiction and been very, very harmed from it, and it hurts, right? As you can imagine, as you see it daily. So, do you know what changed? I mean, is there something that we as a council can write in or say or stand by to help with that?
I think, this might not answer the question directly. I don't know what drove the rapid increase. All I know is that we fully anticipated it at the task force level, kind of nationally. We knew that it was going to happen. We saw it on the East Coast. We saw it transition to the Midwest, and then we were just lagging behind a little bit. And it's supply and demand economics. Ultimately, fentanyl is very cheap to produce. There were some measures taken to counter Chinese imports to Mexico that were pure fentanyl or fentanyl products. Once the cartels were able to establish very complex labs that could take precursors and work around that fentanyl limitation or shipment limitation, things took off very rapidly again. And from the cartel viewpoint, you don't have to worry about crops failing, with heroin and things like that. You don't have to worry about managing the crops, all the expenses that come with that. It's, fentanyl is very synthetic. It's highly addictive. It's very cheap to produce, and so the cartels recognized that, seized on the opportunity, and flooded the market with that product versus others that are much more expensive to produce, especially once they got their distribution and lab side figured out. So I think that's some of it. And then, the other side of it, I think, is just, we got to understand the scale and scope of this. It's, in my opinion, it's an emergency and a crisis. And, we're having discussions within the county about, what this means and what action, is appropriate and necessary. But in my view, just as a drug task force commander, I view it as a crisis. There's no other label for it. It isn't letting up. We fully anticipate a transition over to pure powder fentanyl and pills. We'll start to see that kind of decrease. We suspect they'll be around for a while, but I don't think this is going to end anytime soon. So acknowledging it first, and then treating it with the level of severity that it is at this point, I think is vital.
I appreciate that. And when I see huge spikes like that, I see, not tens of families in tears, but, hundreds or thousands of brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers in tears in the next few years. And I appreciate you guys taking the battle. I think we do need to do something with our laws and our, just the way we do things in our elections and the whole thing. Help you guys out. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and just one little comment to add on to that is the pain, two things. First, our task force detectives and special agents work like lives depend on it. They are the most dedicated group I've ever worked with in law enforcement, working long hours every day of the week, and won't hesitate to come out at 2:00 in the morning if we find out there's a near miss overdose or an actual overdose, to figure out where that supply came from, and start working our way up that chain to hold those people accountable. I think just an awesome group that I get to work with. And then the second is just a quick statistic to throw at you is that the DEA will often take little chunks of these supplies, these pills that come from the cartels, and test them in their labs. 2019, 2020, they found that about 43% of the pills that they tested contained a potentially lethal dose of fentanyl. And earlier this year, that statistic was updated to indicate that over 60% of pills tested contain a potentially lethal dose of fentanyl. So absolutely, we're working like lives depend on it, and appreciate that comment. Thank you very much.
I see we have Chief McElraith on the line. Dan, would you like to make a comment?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank Tobin for coming in, and they do great work, and we do have one member on that team, and very fortunate to have that as part of the public safety that we provide and help out the task force. So just pretty much letting you guys know that this is well worth the position we fund to send over to the task force. Thank you, Tobin, for coming in.
Thanks, Chief.
Yes, Deputy Chief Meyer, I too really want to thank you for coming in. I've actually worked with individuals in recovery, and I know even back in 2012 we were at epidemic level with our addictions and even with the deaths that are occurring, and it's well beyond that now. I don't even know that you could even put some sort of a title on it. It's really crazy. So I do understand that this is a David and Goliath situation, but I'm gonna believe, like I did in the story of David, that Goliath is gonna lose his head over this. So anyway, thank you for all that you are doing. We greatly appreciate that. I've written a couple letters for you all. I'd be happy to do it again if you want me to, and support. And yeah, thank you very much.
Well, thank you all again. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. And we appreciate that support, and we're going to keep up a good fight for you all and for your community, and be a part of a holistic solution to this problem. And I think we'll get there, Mayor, too. I believe that wholeheartedly. Thank you very much.
You have a good night. Thank you again for taking the time to present. That was really interesting. So moving on then to back to reality here, right? The reality is as we know it. City Administrator report.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson, members of the council. I've got 3 items this evening. First item, we launched the Community Development Grant Program on Monday. So now if you go to the front of our website, you will find that as a news item, just in the middle of the page towards the bottom. We've already had some inquiries from businesses. I had one calling me even before we went live, so they're well aware of it. We also got an email list of those businesses that have business licenses, at least so far in 2023, and we're able to email all of them. The Chamber's going to help us spread the word. It's out on social media, and so we're getting the word out on that, and more to come. That was just 2 days ago, so I expect we're going to have some applications here pretty quick. None yet, though. Second item, found out last week that we're going to receive a risk management award from our insurer for a lot of the training work we've done this year and in years, I'm pretty sure years past as well. It's a brand new award, so we'll have more to follow on that. I expect there'll be a council presentation on that at some point. And the last item is I'm on vacation next week, so I won't be here. That concludes my report.
Enjoy your vacation. Councilman Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing.
All right, thank you. Councilman McGoffin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No report this evening.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Diamond.
No report this evening, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Burns.
I've just been asked to remind everybody that the Lions Club of Sedro-Woolley is having a Take a Swing at Diabetes Golf Tournament at the end of September, and they are looking for people to play as well as sponsor.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Kesty.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Allen.
Nothing, Madam Mayor.
All right. And Councilman Lavaca.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilman Burns was probably going to mention the meeting we had. No, that's right. Yeah, so we had the strategic planning meeting. I'll let you elaborate on that, but it was very good. And one of the things we talked about was the grant program and the nonprofit difference in that. And the reason why there was a difference is because we ended up talking about businesses and moving around here, and that just businesses getting increased, and it just happened to be one of those areas where they just got decoupled and moved along, where the original cost was going to be $500 or $5,000 across the board. So that was that. It's been a great summer so far. We are coming up to Labor Day, so I hope everybody has a really good Labor Day. The parks have been really nice. The one that Memorial Field is looking like it's getting completed, or we're very, very close. If not, people are playing on there. So that's really good. So thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I
Go
may
ahead,
amend
go
mine,
ahead. Yes,
I guess I should have brought up the Business Development Committee. We also talked about the draft Economic Development Action Plan. We've been reviewing that. Next up, we're going to try to get Charlie to put it into an achievable order, basically the low-hanging fruit all the way out to the long-term plans before we bring it to you to let you have a look at our work and critique it, let us know what you think. Otherwise, Councilman Lavaca talked about what we did with the grant program review. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. And so over the weekend, I actually went to a great presentation at the museum, and I didn't know if the director wanted to talk about that.
Yes, we had a very great presentation with the Upper Skagit Tribe for a collaboration that we did on an exhibit featuring their rich history, and it was very nice to see people come out and support it, so thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Yeah, it was very nice. It's a nice display. So we just had this presentation by Deputy Chief Meyer. And coming up at the end of this month, on August 31st, it is International Overdose Awareness Day. And I just wanted to read this into the record because I think all of us have been impacted by overdoses. I know that I've lost family members to drug addiction. And so International Overdose Awareness Day is a global event, and it's held on the 31st of each month, and it was started in 2001. The campaign also acknowledges the profound grief felt by the families and friends whose loved ones have died or suffered permanent injury from drug overdose. International Overdose Awareness Day spreads the message about the tragedy of drug overdose death, and the drug overdose is preventable. The 2023 theme for the Overdose Awareness Day is Recognizing Those Who Go Unseen. And it is about acknowledging people in the community who are affected by overdose but might not be seen in crisis. The goals of the International Overdose Awareness Day are to provide opportunity for people to publicly mourn loved ones in a safe environment, some for the first time without feeling guilt or shame. It is to include the greatest number of people in International Overdose Awareness Day events, encourage non-denominational involvement, to provide information about the issues of the fatal and non-fatal overdose, to send a strong message to the current and former people who use drugs as they are valued, to simulate discussion about overdose prevention and drug policy, to provide basic information on the range of support services that are available, to prevent and reduce the drug-related harm that supporting evidence-based policies and practices, and to inform people about the world and to inform people around the world about the risk of overdose. So in recognition of International Overdose Day, on the 31st, they ask that you wear a ribbon or the color purple to help support and foster this open, informative discussion about substance abuse and disorder in drug overdoses. And we have a Safety and Wellness Committee who quarterly put on lunches, and this is going to be the topic of our quarterly lunch this month. So to all of you who have lost loved ones, I extend my condolences. I know what that is like, and we pray that soon this will be something that we will be reading about in the history books and not something we'll be experiencing on a daily basis. Okay, moving on to public comment. We did have a list out for people to sign up for public comment here in the chambers, but I don't know if people were aware of that. It is going to be back there, and I encourage you, if you wanted to give public comment in the future, to go ahead and sign. But I will open it up for you to come forward if you like and make public comment. I do want to make you aware that because of state law, it prohibits the use of any city facility, the purpose of supporting or opposing a campaign or ballot proposition. So we are respectfully requesting that public comments do not make references to this matter. So if there's anybody here in the chamber who would like to make public comment, please keep it to 3 minutes, and I will open it up. Is there anyone who'd like to come forward? All right, seeing none, I'm going to open it up to people who are online. Just go ahead and unmute your mic, and the same will apply for you as well. 3 minutes. All right. I don't see anybody who is interested in doing public comment tonight, so we're going to move on to new business. We do not have any unfinished business tonight, so we're going to move on to new business. And first item on the list is the North Star Leadership Team for Skagit County. It's an interlocal agreement. I hope you all had opportunity to read through this. And of course, the background information on this is that representatives from Skagit County and its cities have been meeting informally since July of 2022, and I've been a part of this, Sedro-Woolley's been a part of this, to discuss matters of countywide concern involving housing instability, mental and behavioral health services, and substance abuse. This agreement formalizes the group and identifies its purpose. I hope you had a chance to read through the ILA, because it actually states what our purpose is. Its primary function will be to obtain data and provide information or analysis that may be assist local jurisdictions in the development of methods for eliminating, reducing, and management homelessness, housing, behavioral health, and substance abuse disorders. It will be taking funding sources that are from the local jurisdictions, and they may apply them to address these concerns. So I don't know if there's any questions or comments. If not, of course, I would be looking for a motion to approve the interlocal agreement.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
I'd like to say that this kind of goes along with what we were hearing earlier. If we can help people get treatment, get off the street, get on their feet, get a roof over their head, and find a job, we help them become a more productive member of society. I know that this is just a small portion of doing that, but being able to pool our resources between the other communities makes it so that we are much more powerful in our ability to help those people get back on their feet to where they are earning a living and taking care of themselves. So I think that this is a good step in the right direction for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Just clarification that this is only an appointing of the leadership board in representation of the city of Sedro-Woolley and not funding it for the further years. Is that correct? There's no additional funding or discussions of that. That's simply leadership board.
No, this is just as his stage. You're right. Yep,
Perfect.
yep.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify.
Right.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the North Star Leadership Team for Skagit County interlocal agreement.
Great, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'll second that.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Councilman McGoffin, second by Councilman Allen, to approve the mayor to sign the North Star Leadership Team for Skagit County interlocal agreement. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. We look forward to doing good work together with our neighbors. Moving on to the amending Title 9A, the Crime Code of the Sedro-Woolley Municipal Code, Ordinance Number 2054-23. And this is Nikki. Good evening, Nikki.
Good evening. So we're following along with the theme tonight of substances. So as you recall, a while back, we did make some amendments to the criminal code, and we added in certain drug offenses that were authorized by the state legislature last session. However, there was one that we did not add in that was brought to our attention by Chief McElraith, and that would be possession of counterfeit substances or use of counterfeit substances in public places. So we are looking to add that in this evening. There's two other additions that we're looking to make this evening that were requested by the prosecutor, or at least they were a result of a request by the prosecutor. Adding in crimes dealing with sexual exploitation of children, specifically in this case, communication with a minor for immoral purposes. That is a gross misdemeanor. Most of the sexual exploitation crimes are felony level, but this one is a gross misdemeanor. And also adding in some of the gross misdemeanor cyber crimes that aren't in your code currently, like cyber harassment, cyber stalking, spoofing, things like that. So what we're looking for this evening is a motion to approve ordinance 2054-23. We would like action this evening because the drug code has been enforced since the 15th of this month, and so we'd just like to make sure that we are able to enforce that as well. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take those. Otherwise, this is really a housekeeping amendment to add in some things that were requested by prosecution and police.
All right, thank you, Nikki. Are there any questions for Nikki?
Yeah, if I may, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Nikki, so right now, without these in there, what happens if people get busted with that stuff? They just walk free?
Well, the city can't prosecute gross misdemeanors that are not in its code. So yes, they wouldn't be prosecuted under city codes. You could potentially have it prosecuted at the county level, but that would be an additional layer of complication.
So if somebody does something like that, it wouldn't just go to county. It would basically be within the city. And then my other question with the cyber side of it, I mean, everything in there, everything in the other stuff, I mean, it sounds very reasonable. That makes perfect sense. With the cyber side, with everything going on online, as we're seeing with, the big tech companies and what fact checkers and all that stuff, what is cyber harassment? I didn't get a chance to dig into that. Like, is that just something?
So say say you're utilizing the internet to essentially aggressively pepper someone with communications in a manner that constitutes harassment. I mean, oftentimes you see that in a case where you have maybe an ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend situation where they just don't get the message and they are harassing their former partners. That's where I've seen it most frequently.
Yeah, it just seems like lately we have seen an abuse of power when it comes to cyber accusement, as we've seen within like recent revelations with big tech companies and things like that. So does that have to be in there? Or is that something we can pull out and review as we go? Obviously, it's already going to be in the county code. I mean, it wouldn't be something that is, like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, is that something that it's all one package, and if it's not in there, people go free? Or is it possible that somebody could possibly use that to their advantage to abuse the system?
I'll let Dan weigh in on the abuse of the system.
So basically, if we don't do this, then it's going to go into somebody else's court, which is not the way we need to do things around here. We need to probably handle our own crimes that occur in our own jurisdiction. Otherwise, we're not, looked favorably upon the other agencies. And the other thing is, this is just harassment using technology. That's all it is. If it ends up in felony land, then yes, it does go over to Superior Court. But there's several levels to that, and we got to meet that criteria before that goes over there.
I just want to make sure one of our citizens isn't, all of a sudden getting harassment charges put on them without them understanding even what's going on, and then finding out that, oh, well, we're classifying this as that, and it puts them in a really bad position where it was where their intent wasn't criminal or wasn't harassment, but now we're setting up something that's going to be categorized as that. Do you think that's something that we would see? No.
This is an RCW. We're not adopting anything different than that is already in RCW. So this is just putting it in our code so we can handle this in our court if it does happen and we do meet the requirements of that statute.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Yes, Councilman Burns?
Actually, if no one else has a question about it, I'm okay with adding these to our RCW. So I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2054-23, amending Sedro-Woolley Municipal Code, Title 9A, Criminal Code.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Councilman Burns, second by Councilwoman Kesty. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion carries. Moving on to the last item of the night. This is our local match funding for the 2023 through 2025 state capital budget appropriation for the Public Works Facility and Vehicle Storage Project. Mr. Freiberger.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yep.
As Council's well aware, we've been constructing our new Public Works facility and wastewater facility for the last year and a half or so. And we still had a shortfall on building one of the longer range plans, which was a building to store the solid waste vehicles in. And so with the mayor and city administrator's encouragement, we applied for capital budget funding from the Washington State Legislature in February, and through our members there, we were awarded $500,000 for that. And so this memo tonight is not the agreement that will follow. One of the first steps was to verify that the funding, the local funding, the match funding, was available for the project. And so I have given you a memorandum which discusses the fact that we do have enough of both of our fund balance and account, or Fund 505, available for this. Once we add in the expected transfers into the account, less the expenses that we have for the bond payments through the local bond we have for this project. So the estimated local funds needed, or what was committed in the grant, is $274,000. We're estimating we should have $299,000 and some change available for this. And so we're asking for a motion tonight of council to approve the local match funding from Fund 505, as is discussed in the memorandum that you have. It is $274,000 per the grant agreement for the budget appropriation for the Public Works Facility and Vehicle Storage Building project. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to take those.
Thank you,
And-
Mr. Freiberger. Are there any questions for Mark? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, you're saying you need a motion tonight?
We do, yes.
I'll make a motion to have that pass for the local matching fund for the 2023 through 2025 state capital budget appropriations for the Public Works Facilities and Vehicle Storage Project.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Councilman Lavaca, seconded by Councilwoman Diamond. Any more discussion?
Madam Mayor, if I may, I just want to say that I am grateful to our state legislators for coming through on this, because I believe this is one of the items Charlie and myself were knocking on doors for down in Olympia last spring. Thank you.
I'd like to take a little credit too, because I actually took him down to Public Works and gave him a tour.
Oh, good job. Thank you.
Yeah. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, fantastic. Teamwork, dream work.
Thank you.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Senator Wagner was going, I don't know if it's going to make it in there. We're like, we need it.
He still wasn't.